Hey guys, what's up, Cardfight here, and right now I'm here with a Nubatama deck profile. This is the Mantoracongo build, which he's the Legion of the deck. So this deck is actually pretty strong now. Yeah, he's pretty strong. I think the main reason why people didn't run him is because he was sort of hard to get. Right now, yeah, this deck got the most votes for the thing. I think it's a troll, but I don't really care since you guys voted it. Since it has 46 votes, I'm just gonna do this one first. And the next one on the list is Dragonic Overlord Aleph or Aleph, and I'm not gonna do that at all because I don't even have enough Alephs, I don't think. And then one after that is Dragler Abyss. So Dragler Abyss will be the next deck on the list. So if you guys voted for that, you're gonna have to wait a bit more since well, this deck won. So yeah, let's get right into the deck profile. Hot quest ladies. Alright, so the starting Vanguard we run is Kuroko. He's pretty much the only good option you have for this deck. His skill is, when this card's boost and hit, you may pay a cost, which is Soul Last One. And then if you do, choose 2 cards in your opponent's bind zone and put them into the drop zone. So it puts a lot of pressure on your opponents. Yeah, it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent, since they could potentially lose 2 cards every turn, as long as you have Soul. So, yeah. Right, next we run for Mantoracongo. He is the Legion of the deck, and he is a pretty good card. So let's see what he does, shall we? I know what he does, but kind of us 1. Choose a card in the Vanguard circle with the same name as one of the units in your Vanguard. And then if this card's in Legion and your opponent has 4 or more cards in their hand, you can choose 2 of them and discard bind it, sorry. And your opponent choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it. Put one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it. So why this card is good is because your opponent has 3 less cards to guard with this turn, since you're probably going to choose an interceptor. And yeah, by the way, it's random. You choose at random, so you don't get a look at their hand. That would be way too OP. Yeah, so basically you have 3 less cards to guard with that turn. And when this card attacks your opponent's Vanguard and there's another unit in the center column as this card, it gets plus 3k. So basically when you're Legion, it's 23k base, which is pretty good. So yeah, next we run 4 Break Rides. I did consider running the thing from Fire's Collection, but it's not as good compared to this guy. So I might as well just run the Break Ride along with this guy, so I can do a maximum amount of binding that turn. Because if you combo these 2 cards, you can bind up to 5 cards. Or you can give your opponents up to 5 less cards to guard with that turn, which is pretty good. For those of you who don't know his skill, he's a Break Ride that came out in BT13. It's when this Limerick 4, when a Nubatama unit rides on top of this unit, it gets plus 10k, and your opponent chooses a card in their hand and discards it, and then he chooses cards in his hand and puts it in the bind zone. And at the end of turn, the card goes back to the hand. Same with this guy, if I don't mention it. Yeah. So basically, he chooses the targets, unlike this one. But yeah, it's pretty good. Since, as I said before, they have 5 less cards to guard with, and oh yeah, he also has another skill. It's when this card attacks, it gets plus 3k. 2k, sorry. So it's a 13k attacker. Next, I run 4 of these Legion mates for Mantoracongo. And his skill is, he's probably one of the best cards in the deck. When this card attacks while your Vanguard's in the Legion, it gets plus 2k. So it's an 11k attacker. And it has a new skill. Soul Boss 1. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, your opponent choose 2 cards in your opponent's bind zone and put it into the drop zone. So he's pretty much a Kuroko. So basically, if you have this card behind your Vanguard and this card on the side, you have really pressuring columns. But since he is a Legion mate, you might want to save him for the Persona Blast for your Vanguard. But if you have extra copies of your boss in your hand, then you're probably just gonna discard those instead. Because this guy is very useful, and if you keep him in hand, it's kind of a waste, but yeah. Anyway, next we run 3 of the bears. When this was called to the Vanguard rearguard circle, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and put them in the bind zone. Basically, it disables your opponent's rearguard for a turn. The downside to this card is if you choose a card that has an on-call effect, they can reuse it since it goes back to their hand at the end of turn instead of the field. So yeah. Next, we run the Stealth Dragon, I think his name is. Every time a card is put into your opponent's bind zone, it gets plus 2k. So either if it's bind from hand or bind from the rearguard circles, you will gain the power. Yeah. So he's also a pretty big attack. He can be a pretty beefy attacker sometimes. He was a bit stronger in the older build since you bind more. But he's still a pretty good card in this current build. So I run 3 simply because I am making room for another card that you usually wouldn't have in other decks. So next we have probably one of the best cards in the deck, if not this guy. Catalyst 1. If this card boosts and hit, if this card boosts and hit, it doesn't even need to be Vanguard. And your opponent has less cards, more cards in their hand than you. You can make your opponent choose to discard a card. So he uses to discard a card if he has more cards than you in hand. So this is amazing because he does not require to hit the Vanguard. That's BT1 for you. Yeah, he's BT1, so he's probably pretty hard to find. But he's a pretty good card. So if you have these 2 cards combo, then it's pretty amazeballs if your opponent has more cards in your hand. Yeah. Next we run this guy, which I wouldn't usually use his effect for, but if you happen to need more soul, then you can use it. The skill is Catalyst 1. Move this card into soul. If your Vanguard, if you have a new Batama Vanguard and your opponent has 3 more cards in their hand, you pay the cost. If you do, randomly choose one of your opponent's card and put it into the bind zone. So this guy's not that great because you lose if you don't kill your opponent on that turn. You pretty much lose a card. So yeah, I usually don't recommend using him unless you know you're gonna win. For example, if they're at 5 damage and you just pretty much bind all their stuff and they have only 3 cards on their hand, then you can use this so that they only have 2 cards in their hand. And they probably couldn't guard all 3 of your attacks with 2 cards. If they do, then they're pretty good at this game. So that's the only time I would use this effect. But other than that, I run 3 AK attackers, 8k boosters. Mainly these are here because he gets plus 3k if you have more than, if you have another card in the center column as this card. So even when he's Legion, you can swing for 31, and that's a pretty good number. And along with the Break Ride, you can swing for 21, which is also a pretty good number back then. So you can, hit for magic numbers early on if you have this guy. But usually he's only used if you if your Kuroko gets killed or something. So, yeah. Besides that, he is a pretty good. He has a pretty good body to prevent you from early rush. And yeah, you can take this guy out for more of these, but I don't really recommend it because your Kuroko is probably going to die pretty easily due to the amount of removal in the current meta, with things like Gear Chronicle, Draconic Overlord, Revengers and stuff. So I recommend running these as a backup booster for your Vanguard. Next, we run 4 of the Perfect Guard. Looks pretty much like Kakagure, so he's the Perfect Guard, and that's all you need to know. Grade Zeros, we run 2 Hakagure. If you guard with this card, and your opponent has more cards in your hand, or in more cards in their hand than you can counterblast 1 to make your opponent discard a card. So he chooses a card and discards it. And this is amazing because since you're running a Legion deck now, you can put these back into your hand if you use them early game. So it's a pretty nifty card. I only run 2 because I don't really want to keep deck too imbalanced. As in the deck ratio too imbalanced. So yeah. Triggers, we run 4 crit, 4 stands, 4 draw, and 4 heal. It's a rainbow trigger lineup because I believe rainbow triggers are the only way to go as of now. But rainbow triggers are actually pretty nice in this build anyway, because you have 7 cards in the deck that can hit over 11k by themselves. So it's nice to have cards that can withstand and hit for nice numbers. Because if you bind a lot with this card, well, this card on the field, I mean, you can potentially withstand it and hit with a really big number. And with this card, if you withstand it, you still have that pressurizing effect. So if your opponent doesn't, unless opponent wants to really wants to use a card next turn, then they will probably guard it and lose cards from their drop zone. So that's pretty much it for this deck profile. I have been really busy lately, so I didn't have time to make any videos. And I managed to find the time today, but unfortunately tomorrow is the release of VGBT01, which I will also be opening. But yeah, my videos are really weird. They come out, I like release a bunch at the same time, and then I go away for quite a while. But hopefully in January I'll have more time to post videos, since I'll be done with exams by then. It'll be a new semester, so I'll be less busy. But right now I'm pretty busy with projects and stuff, and yeah. So that's pretty much it for this deck profile, guys. Stay tuned for a Drag Ruler and Drag Ruler Abyss deck profile, which will happen probably next week, and a VGBT01 unboxing and speed unboxings probably, and you'll probably expect that tomorrow. I might film it at my locals, I'm not sure yet, but yeah, we'll see. Anyway, this is Cardfight, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!